Olá, amigo da hipnose. Hoje vocês estão na terceira aula da hipnose conversacional, sem transe. E esta aula, James irá explicar sobre um pouco da complacência, das metáforas que se usa para que o indivíduo esteja na sua responsividade, esteja numa sintonia com você. Algumas questões de linguagem que influenciam isso. Preste muita atenção, uma boa aula e até breve.
So let's go through that hand stick sequence, breaking it down piece by piece. Can I ask you, do you feel like you're in a hypnosis right now? Then you find your left hand. I need to just place your right hand on the table, and you can put your left hand out the way down the leg. Okay, so what you're seeing here are the first steps in setting up the loop after I've set the big frame around it, the big because and everything. Now you don't see that, I've already explained that that's not on this video, but I will be talking about that later. The first thing I've asked is, do you feel like you're in a hypnotic trance now? Now part of the reason I've asked that is because I was filming for this very purpose, for this hypnosis without trance purpose, but at the same time it's still an indirect suggestion, it's still seeding that idea of hypnosis. Even though I'm getting a no, it's putting that idea in. Do you feel like you're in a hypnotic trance now? No. The next thing I'm doing is asking the question, are you right or left-handed? Now this seems like a little bit of, it's not really important, it doesn't matter whether they're right or left-handed. But I am asking the question to engage the person and also to suggest there's a significance there. If they believe there's a significance there, then that can start to play into the belief set that something is going on now. People are meaning makers, so they will attach meaning to that. And it attaches gravity to the process by asking a question like that. I'm then asking him to place his hand flat on the table and place the other hand out the way. Now, in part this is a procedural instruction, it's not a suggestion, it's an instruction, it's a procedural instruction that sets up what I'm going to do, but I'm also watching as this takes place to see how responsive the subject is. So I'm looking for a sort of compliance there with my request without any kind of hesitation. What I'd like for you to do is just pick a point in your head so you can look at. You can allow your focus to become fully absorbed. And as you continue to look at that point, I'd like you to be aware that you can see your hand, and you can feel your hand on the table, and you can feel the table just pushing up and the sounds around you. Continue to look at that point. So in this section you can see that I've set up what's classically called an eye fixation. Now some people believe this is a necessary part of a trance induction. I'm not thinking about this as a trance induction at the moment. For me, I am setting up focus because it is important that the person is focused on what's happening, is aware of what's happening in the moment, because I want to draw them into a loop. So the eye fixation there is about focus. What I've moved on to do there is to start with a process of pacing the subject's experience. So I'm talking about you can see your hand, you can feel your hand rested on the table, and you can feel the table pushing up on your hand. So I'm going into the see and the feel at that point. And I also mentioned at other points I pace what's going on, the sounds around and that kind of thing. So I'm going into the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic. I'm pacing the person's experience, what's happening for them in those three basic channels. There's another little touch there, I'd say, when I set up the fixation about becoming fully absorbed. I use that line a lot, fully absorbed, because I really want them in the moment. I want them to step away from that critical part of their thinking and become absorbed in the experience that they're having right now. So these are all the things I'm doing, and this is the initial part of drawing them into a loop. It's pacing their experience. Think about that experience part of the loop. I've done a little bit of engaging of beliefs earlier, and now we're into experience. And as you do that, as you feel that energy into your hand, I want you to just imagine there's a powerful glue spreading between your hand and the top of the table. Very powerful glue. In fact, as that glue starts to spread into your hand starts to lock and stick. Continue to look. As you imagine that,
So now, having paced experience, I'm starting to engage imagination. I'm encouraging a continual focus. So I've talked more about being absorbed and continuing to look. I'm doing more pacing. I'm using the pacing kind of language. And as this happens, this happens. As you continue to be aware of this, this happens. But I'm engaging the imagination, so I'm bringing in a concept, a metaphor. I'm talking about glue spreading between the hand and the table. And I'm talking about that glue sinking into the hand. I'm creating a vivid imaginary experience. I'm leading the person on a little imaginary journey at that point. So as their experience starts to shift, listen to the language, and as this happens, you can do this kind of language is going on. It's pacing and leading language. We'll go into more detail on that at another point.
Do you imagine that now? What's more stuck, your fingers or your palm?
Now I've said, as you imagine that now, what's more stuck, your fingers or your palm? Notice there how I'm shifting from imagination into reality. As you imagine that, what is more stuck, your fingers or your palm? So I'm making a step there. Now, I'm doing it in such a way that it's a smooth transition from imagination to reality. I don't want the subject to consciously notice that change. It's like we've been imagining something and now I'm slipping across to talking as if that's really happening without flagging that in any way. Also notice what's called a bind I'm setting up here. What is more stuck, your fingers or your palm? Now, in saying that, I'm presupposing that something is more stuck. So I'm saying indirectly that they are both stuck. It's what's called an indirect suggestion. Many people who are interested in NLP will know about this, or the Ericksonian approach. It's an indirect suggestion. And really, as soon as he answers one or the other, he's accepting that there is stuckness there. He's accepting that into his reality. So I'm asking, what's more stuck, your fingers or your palm? I don't mind which one he says is more stuck. It could be the fingers or the palm. But I know when I get that answer, I'm getting a key piece of feedback that that person has now stepped into that loop fully. They're in that reality because one of those things is more stuck. There is stuckness there. It's happening.
Notice how your fingers can stick more, lock more fully, all the way through.
So I'm going with what the subject says. As soon as he says fingers, notice how I repeat his word, fingers, back. Whenever a client or a subject describes their experience in any way or says anything, I'll always parrot it back, and it's refocusing them on the very thing they've just described or the very thing they've just noticed. So it's drawing them in, keeping them in that loop.